Welcome to Milk Market Tidbit for the January Dairy Products Report that USDA released yesterday afternoon. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones, and I'm recording this Friday morning, March the 6th. So the Dairy Products Report kind of puts everything together for the month of January, but specifically for cheese production, relative to the previous estimate for December, USDA actually lowered those estimates for production. Now they had increased the cold storage, so that is a scenario for lower demand. Now for butter production, they lowered the cold storage a little bit and raised production. So again, that combination would suggest that demand was probably a bit better. Now if we look at the actual for cheese production, it came in at 1.278. My estimate was just a little bit higher, and StoneX's was just a little bit lower, but not too far off. And the butter came in at 215 million. That's pretty close to where I had it at 216. Now StoneX had it a bit higher at the 272. But I just like to plot these out. So this is the daily cheese production. This is all cheese. Here's our long-term trend, and so our seasonal adjusted number would have suggested that should have come in very close, but it was a little bit lower than that. But that still was a record high production of cheese in the month of January. So not only is it high for any January, but it's high for any month. Now here's our cheese to milk ratio. This is an estimate of how much of the milk goes into cheese. Again, we've kind of been on this long-term trend now. It's been headed down a little bit recently, so I'm not quite sure if that's kind of an efficiency with these new plants or exactly what's going on with that. American cheese production, again, here's our long-term trend. We really took that under control here for about 3 years. But it's been climbing fairly significantly, and this wasn't an all-time record. We had a little bit higher in 2023, and of course some of these months were higher back here in 2025, but still a fairly hefty amount of American cheese. Specifically cheddar cheese, which long-term trend, we've been off that for these 3 years. We came in a little bit lower than the seasonal adjusted number, but again, that's a fairly high number for cheddar production. There was a little bit higher back here in 2023, and just tipped it over here a little bit in 2025. But again, that is a fairly high amount of cheddar production. More importantly, we have reversed this trend of actually going down, and now we're a bit higher. Now the one that's really taken off is Italian cheese, and again, that's what's going to be largely exported. Here's our long-term trend, and again, here's the January production of Italian cheese, and it's an all-time record. So again, this is significantly up from a year ago. Now we had a little bit higher 2 months ago in December, but overall that's a very high amount of Italian cheese. Whey production had been coming down, but now it's on an upward trend again, and I think that's probably why whey is a little bit under pressure on the spot market. Now, the one that's a bit surprising is butter production. We've been on this long-term trend, and we've really exceeded that these last 3 years. And the butter production we had was basically an all-time high. Now, we had a little bit of a blip back here in 2020 during the pandemic. But again, that's an all-time high butter production. That's probably going to give the butter on the spot market a little bit of a pause. Interesting, ice cream production has been coming up just a little bit now. Again, very seasonal. But if we just look at all the Januaries, generally that's been on a downward trend, but this really significantly took off here. So I'm not quite sure what's driving all that ice cream production, but the same thing happened last year. Yogurt production continues to be strong. Again, I think that's part of that protein craze that we've got going on. Came off of our seasonal adjusted number a little bit, but again, very much going up. And the one that is really rocketing up is cottage cheese. It continues to be the case. Now it came in a little bit lower than the seasonal adjusted number, but from 2023 on, this has just really taken off. So that kind of wraps up this week. Again, the global dairy trade was fairly strong. Classic components came out. They were not overly exciting. And then this is the dairy products. The next milk market tidbit will be for the statistical uniform prices, which come out between the 12th and the 14th.